Tripp so I can share this.
We can do that.
It's on. You can just use the YouTube link, but I'm going to run the countdown real quick as people like come in. All right. Well, guess what time it is? It is time for some fun. So much fun that I'm going to hit the air horn. Yeah. Well, this is exciting. We're doing a live stream, which I'm sure there's an edited version of this that'll be on the internet. And I'll just tell you, you're going to wish you were here live because Tim and I were discussing like the beginning, the lure of letting people know about Theology Beer Camp this year. And I said, hey, there's only one really good way to let people know about Theology Beer Camp. In October 2023 in Springfield, it's for us to get tipsy and answer random questions we haven't looked at on the internet. And that's what's happening. Woo! Yeah. And so throughout this, we're going to answer some random questions. I don't know where they're going to go, but I did cut and paste about 60 of them and sent them to Kristen and Bryn. And then Tim sent some screenshots from the IG, the Instagram king over there. So we're going to see what happens. But, you should go to theologybeer.camp. At theologybeer.camp, there's this wonderful thing where you can drop your name and your email. And then next week, you're going to get an email about Theology Beer Camp. And you'll be able to buy tickets before they go on sale. It'll be the cheapest you could get them. And then you can come hang out with us. And it's not every day you can hang out with like 15 podcasts and 15 theologians and day drink. So,
That's true.
That's right.
It's true.
Not every day you do that. And if you did, you'd probably have a problem. So,
or just like an awesome life.
You got to do it once a year. Once a year.
Yeah.
Though I have to say, when I was in my 20s, I did 3 of them in a row. 3 weekends in a row across the country.
Wow.
Like when I was 29, and the third one was rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Anyway, things happen. But anyway, this is going to be fun. We're going to do some questions. But first, Tim.
Yeah.
You came to Theology Beer Camp last year. You're returning.
Yep.
And when we were discussing it, I told you one of the ideas I got, and you liked it and made it better. So why don't you, before we get to the first question and meet Kristen and Bryn over here, why don't you give the lure, like for the new evangelical people from your world and such that maybe didn't go, what's up with why are you going to come hang out with me again?
Well, I never told anyone this before, Tripp, but I'm trying to save you, make you a real Christian again.
I thought that was
project.
true.
Yeah, I'm trying to reconvert you back to the true gospel of John MacArthur and Paul Washer, and so I've been praying a long time, and God just put it on my heart, and that's why I've been befriending you this whole time. You've really been a project of mine, so that's the real reason.
Oh, that's it. Well,
yeah. Yeah, I figured if I get you to stop drinking, that's one step towards becoming a
At
true
beer camp?
Christian.
No, see what it is I don't drink the month before beer camp.
Oh, okay.
That's what as the older I get, I got to come in fasting, right? You got to fast, and then you got to celebrate the eschatological banquet and all its surplus and joy.
My order of events was to get you to stop drinking, then to rename beer camp Grape Juice Camp. And then I figured from there, it's only a matter of time before you walk down the aisle and confess Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. So, so that's one aspect of why I'm doing this. The other reason, though, is that, yes, I did go to beer camp last year. Me and Noah, who produces our podcast, we went out. I had no clue what to expect. It was a really great time for a lot of reasons. It was great meeting new people. It was great hanging out with people that I look up to, who, just folks that I'm like, oh, I've talked to you on my podcast, or I've heard you on someone else's podcast. And I love that everyone was just kind of together. There was no mega church green room for the scholars, and then us lay folks are just like hoping we get to, be to touch the garment of Pete Enz's cloth as he walks by. None of that was happening. So anyway, so I'm excited for this year because
I really hope you do touch Pete's garment. Only because it'll make him awkward, because at beer camp he pulled the chair out from under me right before Diane Bass gave me my birthday cake.
Wow.
What's up with that, Pete Enns? Wow. I'm coming for you.
Wow. Yeah, what's up with that, Pete? So I'm excited to be coming out to beer camp again, and meeting cool new people and thinking about different ways of expressing and thinking about the Christian tradition and all that entails. And for folks like me whose tradition is conservative evangelical fundamentalism, this is like a whole new world, just a whole new world that's been unleashed to us. The possibilities are endless. We're like kids in a candy store. So I'm looking forward to coming back in October and hanging out.
Awesome. All right. So we got all these questions, and Brent and Kristen have them. And Brent and Kristen are here because they are, they're like, what is like a authoritative title that doesn't like take some medieval female name that then seems demeaning, right? Like, but they're going to basically be the gurus in charge of organizing, putting together, bringing all the zest for beer camp this year. And they have very different gifts than I do. And Kristen, who's very good friends with Myron Pinner, that podcast people will be familiar with, was one of the people mentioned, like, have you thought about someone other than you running the whole thing as it's taking place? So I'm leaning into delegation. Wow. And part of that is I sent them all the questions people sent for this. So Brent is our on the ground coordinator. What would be the embedded contextual community cultivator? There you go.
Oh, love that. Adding that to the resume right away.
Let's go.
Yeah, sounds like a graduate degree right there. So Bryn, we'll let you go first. You're going to pick any of these questions. We'll just talk about them for a bit. Okay. Also, sitting next to me is one of my friends since high school, and also like a theologian, ethicist, Ryan. And even though the name says Tripp, I got two cameras, and the name has to say the same. Say hi.
Hi, hello.
So I might just outsource an answer to him just because. No, because you're professional.
That's right.
You're professional. You're professional. All right, Bryn, you pick the first question.
Well, let's kick it off. So Tim didn't actually unveil the umbrella that we're going to fall under this year with our theme.
Oh, yeah.
But I really feel like people will really get it if they've seen the graphic and they've started to see what we've put out there about beer camp. I think we have to start out with, is Jar Jar Binks a misunderstood character or an annoying one?
Ooh. Okay, so, Tim, you were the one that suggested the title, so you should tell the title.
Hold on. I need to clarify something. We were just spitballing, and you're like, that's great. I'm running with it. It's done. I'm like, oh, okay. I guess it has been settled.
I texted Brendan and Kristen. They liked it.
This. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm thrilled. But I want to be transparent and honest. I can't say I'm like the most diehard fanboy ever to exist in the. I'm not like you, Tripp, when it comes to Lord of the Rings. Okay,
I got Star Wars too. Don't worry.
I'm not going to be one of these guys like, oh, let's do a podcast on Star Wars, episode 3, and if the director did a good job on scene number 4, that's just not what I'm gonna do. That's not how I roll. However, I think the theme is good. We're doing last year was God Pod Edition, and now we're doing God Pod Strikes Back. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. It's the middle finger to Empire.
Beer Camp. God Pod Strikes Back.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, because Empire Strikes Back is a sequel, right? And the God Pods together are like they're all across the ecclesiastical spectrum, from different kinds of mainline evangelicals, Pentecostals, all sorts of different places. Yeah. But here's the Venn diagram I came up with. You tell me if this is good material. It's like all the podcasts that talk about God and are welcome and affirming, think justice is not like a side gig, aren't comfortable if you are comfortable if you put the word social in front of it, and aren't scared of like science and history. Like, so it's that, like, it's so like, if you think of Tim, you've spent some time recently with Charlie Kirk, hanging out with him, because y'all are like bros, and he recognized you as wokey blokey or whatever he called you. Like, that is like Empire Christianity. And so if we take Empire Strikes Back and cut out the Empire and bring all the God Pods where people think God might be as nice, loving, and justice-centered as Jesus, then you replace Empire with God Pods. We all come hang out. We bring theologians that are like, screw the Empire too.
That's right.
Like, and we want to like not have top-down totalitarian power and pass off just engaging with democracy while we hijack and pervert it to our own means and ends and universalize our own experience of the world as normative for anyone else. And otherwise we're not going to recognize our own dignity. We're like against that. So cross out the Empire, put God Pods, Strikes Back, because here's the other one. You said this the other day. This is why I liked your idea, Tim. See, is you were like, I'm tired of listening to all these like moderate and quote progressive Christians that can't even use a declarative sentence and be like, no, Christian nationalism's stupid. It's wrong. It's heresy. Yeah. And so that's why Empire Strikes Back is the greatest Star Wars movie. And we got to stick it to the Empire, not let, you get what I'm saying.
I'm about it. I mean, it is the middle finger. I'm from New Jersey, so I would just name it FU Empire. I'm much more crass in that way, but I wouldn't. Because I still have the Holy Ghost. This is a much more. It's a little more tied into something else and pop culture. But yeah, I mean, I'm all about it. God Pods Strike Back, and now more than ever, I think it's necessary that God Pods and others strike back. So I'm all in.
Oh yes, so that was where the name came from. Bryn, we're something about Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah.
So is Jar Jar Binks misunderstood, or is he just simply annoying?
Annoying. Next question. Problem solved. Right over.
What? No, he is annoying. He is annoying. Yeah. He's also misunderstood. He misunderstands the situation, just like most mainline Protestant white Christians who think that corporate Democrats and Morning Joe view of the world will actually result in the situation. So they're like, oh, Amidala has to leave. What's she doing? I don't know. Chasing after her husband that she married on secret that just murdered a bunch of kids. But I will step in for the planet Naboo, and I will suggest that we give emergency powers because he does it, right? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. He's the guy that justifies all this stuff. So he's misunderstood because we think, Misa wants to gossip about, like we're like, that's silly. That's whatever. But really, he's like the archetype of like, we intend well, but want it to cost us nothing, and we don't want to be uncomfortable Christians. Jar Jar Binks. We're just like, oh, you know what? We need an exception to this. Like, anyway.
I don't know what to say to that. I mean, sure, Tripp. I'll run.
This is
the
like
problem with theologians is that you got to be nuanced. Like, it's not as black. No, let me be a fundamentalist here. It's black and white. He's annoying. He should never have been written on the show. It was a bad decision from day one. The end. Black and white. You're wrong. I'm right. Done.
Kristen, were you in 6th grade when Jar Jar Binks came out?
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I'm
So you're the
Jar Jar
target audience?
what?
Yeah.
That was 2000.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it was 2000, episode 1, right? Or 99.
Oh, you don't know
it was
Star
right in
Wars,
that window.
but you're like, I know
Yeah.
the year it came out.
Well, I mean, I remember that Qui-Gon Obi-Wan Kenobi battle with Darth Maul. That is just seared to my little.
Yes,
I had to be
still
12.
Yeah.
It's epic. It's the
Yeah.
best thing about that whole
Yes.
trilogy, in my opinion.
All right.
Evan's got us in the comments. It's 1999.
Thanks, Evan.
Well played. Well played.
1999. 1999.
Yeah, I was 11.
Wow,
Well,
we got people looking out right now.
Yeah,
I
thanks.
know. Just outsource our research. That's how I do my research. I just Google that junk. I also want to give a shout out to Dan. It says, will Lisa and I receive an award for attending Beer Camp number 5? Yes, Daniel, you and Lisa.
Whoa.
I feel like,
good.
have y'all even done karaoke on opening night? Y'all should
Have or have not?
I don't think so.
Oh, we got.
You want to know how well my memory of opening night karaoke is? I remember Tim and I doing Jesus Freak from last year because it's on video.
Yes.
Well, and can I just commend Trey's camera work of that video? It was he really worked in some cool like cinematography. It wasn't just a shaky phone camera video. He really made you guys look good.
Artists know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Kristen, you're going to pick the next one right after you. What in the world made you go to Beer Camp the first time and then say yes to organizing things while rocking a power suit? Because Kristen, I've seen her as an executive rock a power suit, and it just made people like listen, obey, and stay organized.
Well, wow, honored already. But yeah, Beer Camp number 1. I needed some theological zestiness in my life. Well acquainted with the genius that is Myron Penner. I was like positively influenced for change. I was converted essentially, through a nice grad program up here in Canada. Although I do also originate from New Jersey, and so
hey,
yeah,
let's go.
There we go. A lot of a weirdly strong New Jersey representation here. So yeah.
Wait,
but
Kristen, I'm sorry. I have to ask you a question. This is very important. Do you call it pork roll or Taylor ham?
I moved to Pennsylvania too young to have an opinion, but I just was born in North New Jersey. So let's say pork roll.
You're cool then. You're accepted.
Right answer. As he should.
Whew. Close call.
I'm a fraud. But anyway, yeah, should we dive into a serious one here? That's my question. Are we ready to roll?
Oh, yeah.
How
much have we had to? What's everybody sipping on?
What's everyone's sip level?
I'm pot committed.
I'm committed. I'm actually after this. I'm going to the rest of it's like a brewery party. So yeah, that's crazy. I'm already 2 beers in. It's nuts. The beer theme is strong. So being from New Jersey, we know that evil didn't originate there, but one of our questions is, where did evil originate? So
let's not dismiss that.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna start with.
I know this is a good time to put Ryan on the screen.
There we go. Ryan, get me off of the screen, far away from this
Ryan.
Just bump me off immediately.
Where did he?
Ryan, you belong.
I'll say something, but you're going to come up with a really good answer. Here's one. I got 2 different answers. One is evil is evaluative, assessment of an event. So like when something happens, like where did evil originate? It originates in the other having perspective to assess the past. And so evil is like violence, death, finitude, all these things are just part of the whole cosmic story from a fluctuation in a vacuum 13.8 billion years ago. But at some point, creatures emerge that have investment in past events that violate something they identify as ideal, valuable, good. So like one idea of the origin of evil is when you have a creature who understands the past as having violated what could have been or should have been. That if you're a theist, then you would say something like a creature, it participates in some way with God's experience of an event, understanding it as problematic, unjust suffering, all those kind of things. The other part of way of answering like the origin of evil is if you think of it in a human sense, and since we're the only conscious creatures, well, until this week, once aliens have been confirmed, no one asked a question about aliens, did they? Or
Tangentially.
anyway,
yeah.
tangent. Okay, then maybe we'll get there. But assuming the military-industrial complex cover-up of extraterrestrial visitation and wanting to militarize their technology, but bracketing that, the one of the ways of thinking about the origin of evil is the situation that when human beings evolve to the point that we have culture that then plays a much more active role in our ongoing evolution, right? Like the difference between a human and an ant, in many ways, is like ants speciate. They become different species as they spread across the world into different biospheres. Humans culturally adapt. And so our culture becomes this really important feature. We start to have language, symbolic communication. And in that space, we start to actually value cooperation in very deep ways that then we create symbolic expressions for the violation of the cooperation necessary for community thriving and survival. When you look at the way the concept of evil showed up in different wisdom traditions through human history, the concept of evil that problematizes the goodness of evil, or the goodness of creation, or the goodness of the world or nature or whatever, depending on the place, tends to be when you encounter communities that have the same symbolic cooperative power as you and don't see you as an ally in meeting their own ends. That's where you start to ask the question of evil. What does that mean? It means in some sense that we start to reflect symbolically about our biological inheritance. We inherit a biological sphere. We generate a cultural sphere, an institutional sphere. Evil is a violation of well-being that then we're running on this biological system of sorts. And then it gets to culture, then it gets ugly, and we start talking about evil. What I just said, if you just read a lot of Hebrew Bible scholars, is what they're trying to describe in Genesis 1 through 11 is the way in which you see the human community grow over time, our relationship to technology and nature change, and the possibility and potential for violence expands. Those are two different answers. Ryan,
Ryan?
Yeah, Ryan.
Hey, Ryan.
I like that. That's good. A question like that, where does evil come from? My first thought is like, I don't know if that's a great question. I mean, to be honest, because it's too broad, so I like to be more specific about that kind of thing. So, my
Define
general
those terms.
Yeah, basically, you're right. So, it's not that it's not a good question. It's just that I don't know. I just want to be more concrete about it. So, that's basically my first thought is, I don't know if we can ask basically what Tripp's getting at. I don't know if we can really answer where does evil start or where does it come from. I think it's always sort of the possibilities are always present as far as there's people, conscious beings, and that gets more and more complex as people become.
So if they asked you not where does it come from, because where does something come from, ask for an origin story that explains away the present.
Right.
And this is also true if you have relationship issues. Well, where did that come from? You think that if you know why it originated elsewhere, that fixes the problem. Really bad atonement theories think that if they know where evil comes from, then Jesus is the solution for it, and they force what Jesus said, did, endured into the mold of their problem. That's the tension of the question. And so often evil is not so much where it came from, it's what do you do in front of it is the kind of question. What do you do in response to it is a much more biblical question. You don't get a wrestling in the history of Israel or in the life of Jesus with, well, why does evil even exist? The question is, what do you do with evil when the world comes from one good God? What does that say about existence? It's a reframing. The reframing bit, I think, is important.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So in that sense, I think of evil as like a word we use to talk about the way we harm each other, and the way I seek kind of security when I'm afraid, and then I seek security and I'm afraid of losing what I've got, and then I do things to protect myself or think I'm protecting myself to other people or don't care about other people. Mm-hmm. That's sort of the kind of the source of which that I think that kind of comes about when I'm seeing other people as means to use for my own ends or something to that effect. That's kind of where I go with that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so Tim. Okay, one, Evan, shout out, kind of like Anakin. Well played in the comments. If all the beer at beer camp wasn't free, I would get you one. Actually, I'm going to get you all of them. Tim, you said when we were talking about this event, you and your friends use lots of words and assume things. And wouldn't it be fun at beer camp if someone interjected regularly to tell you, like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
How you feeling?
I mean, listen, all I know is that evil happened when two naked people ate an apple.
Avi.
And then it almost like a Thanos snap, just boom, evil infected the world like a, uncurable disease until Jesus came along and God was so mad at everyone. He's like, no, I'll just kill my own kid on the cross and that will solve the problem. But only if you are predestined to believe in that person. If not, you're just kind of screwed. So that's my tradition of evil. Makes a lot of sense, really works out. The problem is for people like me is that what both of you just said are like, I need like serious time and I have to re-listen to that to think about what was just said because my brain's already been formed around certain presuppositions that now being 34, I have to jackhammer out of my brain like hardened cement and try and find some new ground for some new ideas, right? Mm-hmm. And the other thing I think about too is that when people, I call them bro evangelicals or theo bros, right? When they like to argue with people, that kind of answer to a question of like, well, where did evil come from? Their answer takes like one sentence and your answer takes like a chapter, right? And it's really complicated and nuanced. And I'm like, yeah, and my brain is naturally wired towards the nuance of trying to understand. But like when you're having this conversation with folks who are new to this or who are just kind of walking out of that basement of fundamentalism, it's just like, whoa, I don't even know where to start with any of what you just said because it's so foreign to me even considering what you just said. And also this other answer seems so much more simple and black and white and clear. And therefore, my brain's presupposed to it being like more believable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah, that makes sense. But we're gonna go to the next question because see, I was tempted to be like, well, here's another way of looking at it. This is as Bryn tells us the next question. This is a great time to go to theologybeer.camp where you can get the email next week so you can get tickets at the lowest price. You'll start to get info as we release which podcasts and speakers are going to be there. And if you have a podcast and you want to come, you should let us know. We'll tell you how to do it because Bryn and our partners at the venue have multiple spaces for multiple stages. So we will be having a podcast explosion. All right. Next question, Bryn.
Great. So let's do a beer camp one then, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Should I say usernames? This is an Instagram question.
Well, watch out.
Probably not.
Okay, let's not. What, if anything, surprised you the most about this conference? So I assume we're talking about.
Oh no,
no,
they're not. They're talking. They're talking about my experience at the far right wing pastor summit with Charlie Kirk that I went to.
Do we want to go there?
Yeah. What did you?
Or should I choose a different one?
No. Hold on. This is great. Tim, what part of your far right wing conference thingy do they have any cool features that as we're planning beer camp we should be like we should do that?
Yeah, they give you free
There
food
we
and
go,
free
there's the
lodging
spin.
because some donors pay for all of it.
Okay, but
So,
you know what we give them?
Wow.
We give them a pint glass that they can use from noon on the entire time. I was looking at the reviews from last year. Like, people was like, "You didn't tell me that I didn't have to pay for all my beer," and I was like, "Yeah, I wasn't really sure about how to say that legally, but your ticket, like, you want to know what the average number of pints per beer camp attendee was?
What?
Well,
Oh,
guess.
I want to know. I
Seven.
want to know. I want to say 3.
I think 3.
I said 7.
8.6.
Price
And
is
that's
right,
me.
baby.
That's including me having like half a pint over the course of the whole.
Oh
time.
no, Josh is
You
in
did
the
your part,
chat.
sir.
Josh is in
You
the
did your
chat.
part.
He can confirm that he brought you sour beer made with Jolly Ranchers.
It was so good.
I know what we
So
don't have to
good.
talk about. It's going to ruin your new evangelical witness, but I think you finished an entire can of Jolly Rancher sour beer,
Whoa.
and
I
we're a
did.
little bitter that other people found it in the fridge.
Okay. Let me set the record straight. It's true. I did have
He
a
was
full.
a Jolly Rancher.
I had a full. And then I gave one to Trey Pearson's husband. I forgot his name.
Jonathan.
Yeah, me and Jonathan bonded over because he also loves sours. And so I'm like, dude, you got to have one because I'm Italian, so I have to share my whatever I think.
Sharing
really
is
tasty.
caring.
Oh.
And then
Italian.
Josh at his previous, brewery, he made another sour out of Nerds, and he was supposed to send them to me, Josh, but he never did. So, hopefully I'll get a taste of that. But I do love sour beers because I grew up in a dry house, so like beer or alcohol, the taste of it I never had a real like. It's not my thing. But if it's really sweet, I'm in. I'm in all the way. And if it's sour, even more so.
Well,
Love
I just
it.
want you to know Josh says he still has them. So, you know what
Send
I
them on
have?
over.
I have something. I have the last can of Process Party
Nice.
in my house.
Process party.
That needs an air horn.
There's Josh,
I don't have
Catherine Keller. There's me and Al and Phil and Diana. It's the last can of Process Party. We'll see how it held up, Josh, since
wow.
you're on here. Yeah, this is
So my beer that
this is how we
I'm
find out
drinking is if it holds up.
how your
I'm drinking a
sanitation
sour
was.
from one of this year's
Ooh, that's
sponsors.
Ooh,
Ooh,
do
it's
tell.
So it is a pineapple, guava,
Ooh.
plum, ginger sour from one of this year's sponsors, Banter Brewing Company.
Nice. That sounds
Nice.
delicious.
Exceptional.
Nice.
It's called Frugal Honesty. The head brewer and owner was he studied theology at one of the local universities, so he's dying to come to beer camp and give us a bunch of beer as well.
Excellent.
Nice.
So, we have 3 Process Parties left. Oh, Josh, I'm going to be in Baltimore next week for a baseball game. Elgin and I are road tripping with my parents to Gettysburg and back, and we're going to Orioles game, and then see they're playing the Royals, and then going to see the Dodgers playing the Phillies because we're Dodgers fans. Anyway, now Tim.
Yeah.
Now for the homebrewed listeners who probably were like me and didn't know who the hell Charlie Kirk was until they became friends with you.
Yeah.
And then have had nightmares since then.
Toilet paper USA.
Toilet paper USA. Is that like a hashtag they use regularly?
I don't know.
That is the thing that people use. It's kind of like TP USA, toilet paper USA. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well,
Oh my gosh.
so what was the moment when you one, you need to tell when you met Charlie Kirk's story, because I don't know if I got it correct, but also that he knew you was kind of impressive. It made me jealous. It was like, I like when Morgan Freeman remembered me, I felt so cool in the room of religion reporters, where it was like, there's a homebrewed Christian. And I was like, yes. But I don't know. He's obviously cooler than Charlie Kirk, but
quite a little. Yeah.
But I tell that story, but also like for people that world is so foreign and makes no sense. You went and hung out. Tell the story of what you like. What was your big takeaway, and lure them to go listen to your whole thing, which basically inspired nightmares. I accidentally turned it on while I was brushing my teeth the other night and was listening to your recount of going to this thing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Jesus, where's the progressive Christian that's going to send us millions of dollars so we can just like have everybody come to beer camp? You know,
Yeah.
I'm just like,
for sure.
it's nuts.
For sure. I mean, I'm glad that I woke you up to these people, Tripp, because I think that sometimes
wokey.
sometimes I meet people who are doing amazing work and they just like have no idea of like some of the spaces and what they're advocating for and how well funded they are.
Yeah.
And that's where I get to come in. I get to pop all their little balloons of like, no, this stuff is really embedded in our politics and in our society, etc. So Charlie Kirk is the founder of Turning Point USA, which is a far right like think tank. Started out kind of focused on like the college education scene and like being a young adult conservative thing. He honestly was more libertarian in the beginning, and over time has just kind of gone farther and farther right. And during 2020, he had this moment where he realized that because churches were shutting down during a global pandemic that killed 3 million people in the U.S. and that they were wearing masks and social distancing, he was shocked that the church would be so cowardly and not resist tyranny. And there's another pastor that he knows named Rob McCoy, who was close to him, who is self-described as Charlie's pastor, who kind of was like, dude, we got to do something about this. Like, you know, this is big government trying to shut down the church and, you know, the mask stuff and the jab, yada, yada, yada. So they started Turning Point Faith. That's like a subsidiary of Turning Point USA, which is intentionally working with evangelical spaces to kind of bring more of this far right rhetoric to more mainstream evangelical, you know, places. I mean, not that evangelicalism has not had a far right problem since like the beginning of evangelicalism in America, but you know, it's like a continuation of that, I guess.
Tim, they just wanted to have private schools that were biblically centered.
You're right. That's the only reason.
With only white
no
Protestants.
other reason they wanted private schools during integration. No other reason at all. Just bad coincidence.
It was just like a Yahtzee. You're like, whoa. Like sometimes one dice matches the other dice, and there's no correlation. It was just that their kids would go to a school with people of color.
Yeah.
And so Jesus was like, time for biblical education.
Exactly. So part of the work that we do on in my sphere of the world is we really try and understand and track that stuff so we can kind of better tell people like this is what's really going on, and this is why so many of us are really critical of the current evangelical moment, because this stuff is not resisted, it's embedded, and it's like the center for a lot of this. And for those of people out there who want data, look up the PRRI data on Christian nationalism that came out a few months ago. You know, roughly 3/4 of white evangelicals hold Christian nationalist views, which is the highest demographic. The general population is 30% that would hold that. But in white evangelical spaces, it's like closer to 75%. Like it's a very high number. And so that makes sense because all of that world, they're all interconnected with each other. It's a huge network. So anyway, Turning Point Faith, they've done these pastor summits before. This is their second one. So I registered, I signed up. I went out. Some of the people at Turning Point reached out to me. Hey, why are you coming out? Like, you know, what's your purpose kind of thing? I said, just to have conversations and learn. And they knew who I was because I went to their America Fest in December, which is like their big Christian nationalist, 11,000 people, you know, 95 speakers, Matt Walsh, Candace Owens, they're all there speaking, Trump Jr. So I went to that and I covered that. So they kind of knew why I was coming. So yeah, so I spent 3 days there.
All
talking
the saints,
to people
all the saints,
all of them, all the ones that are, you know, just doing the work
Tim,
of the
just
Lord.
keep talking over me.
Okay, I'm not going to stop. I'm just going to keep talking over you. Yeah, so I went. I went to it and I spent 3 days there, talked to a bunch of people and listened to a lot of sessions. And I'm not sure what you want to know about it, but I did a 20-minute recap on YouTube and I've done a lot of other talking on it. So I feel like I can probably get to wherever you want to be in this conversation, but there's a lot that we could unpack. I mean, there's a ton.
Well, all right, Ryan, I want you to ask him a question since you've spent quite a bit of time thinking about this. about it. I'll ask a short one. Then this is your, you think about what you want to ask.
Homework?
Yeah. So when I listened to your recap thing, and then I watched your other one from the last time, and then we did that like podcast where I had to like watch those people talk. That first event you went to, America Fest.
Yeah.
It was such a train wreck that the thing that stuck out to me as the progressive spectator that's friends with you, who happens to be friends with some of those people because you showed up and like they accept you because, well, you got like, bro evangelical vibes enough to be.
Yeah, I'm bro evangelical passing. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
One of the things you emphasize in both of your responses in that space is, like if you actually like hang out and talk with them, they're like way nicer than you think if you only watch what the clips that get circulated, or like even just listen to the people on the stage and that kind of thing. And I have some family members or close friends that might fit in that crowd, and I don't think that about them. Maybe I'm just like really judgmental. But what do you think, having been at beer camp and hung out with all the Godbots, like what do you think would be the most irritating thing for that crowd? Like if one of them came to beer camp, or maybe two of them, you can invite them. That's fine. I'll give them, they can have a free ticket because we know they aren't going to drink. So it's not going to cost me. I mean, like a normal ticket, I just think they're probably going to have 7.8 beers or whatever. But, like they probably won't because it'll ruin their witness. So, like, what do you think about the beer camp experience would be the thing if they did like a video after it that would be surprising to their crowd?
Like for them, that would surprise them?
Yeah, like they did. Let's say they do a video thing. Like I went and hung out.
Yeah.
At Theology Beer Camp. You heard me right, friends. And they'd probably be like, there's this thing called Theology Beer Camp. They like all the letters, even asterisks, because they're so progressive. Like, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
In it, they're like, but also like they aren't the worst people of all time. Like, what do you think would be their like big takeaway?
Well, I mean, I'm putting words in their mouth, but I think a couple of the big takeaways would be, it would just be, listen, right-wing spaces like that falls back on rhetoric. They're very rhetoric based, and it takes a lot to kind of go beneath that. So I think they would just fall back on the rhetoric. This was a woke event. They were just so crazy woke. They had no moral boundaries. It was so postmodern, no absolute truth. They treat the Bible like it's a selective, not inerrant, infallible word of God. They have nothing to stand on. They have no basis for absolute truth to stand on. Why should we listen to them? What makes them right? That would kind of be, I think, like some of their big takeaways, of just you're not standing on objective reality, Tripp. And you're so intellectual, you're so open-minded, your brains fell out. I think that would be maybe the critique. I do think, though, that I would hope anyway, that what they would say was that everyone was super kind and willing to have a dialogue, and maybe it gave me some food for thought, things to think about. But, I wouldn't foresee them being like, wow, I was just like so changed. Because it's such a different way of thinking. And as someone who grew up in conservative evangelical spaces, even though I was never as far right as like a Charlie Kirk, I was certainly on that path and baptized into the talk radio waters, so it's a whole different way of thinking about things, period. And those spaces, I don't care what they say, I stand by this. They do rely on selective stories, and they rely on this deep-seated fear that if they don't do something, they'll be preaching from prison. That was said multiple times at this event, like from the stage. If we don't
stop from prison,
if we don't stop the Marxist agenda, the woke agenda, if we don't stop the tyrannical government that shut us down during COVID, we will be preaching from prison because we are standing bold for Christ. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that was said
exaggerating.
many times. That's the belief.
Do you think they would survive Dr. Espinosa's "God is trans" shirt?
They might. Their head just might fall off. I also want to say something, Tripp. The reason why, and I say this in all of my video recaps, there is a level of privilege that I have going to these spaces, right? These places were designed for me, for like white men who were steeped in that world. So I don't know how they would treat a trans person when they actually met them. You know, I would be really shocked if they were like, "You're demonic," but I don't think they'd be as kind as they are to me either, right? And so these spaces are not safe, and in these people are not targeting me, right? I'm just, you know, it's just some white dude. It's not a demon. It's not someone trying to overthrow our government. It's not someone trying to, you know, come after the kids or groomer. So I'm able to kind of use my privilege to kind of get into these spaces because they'll talk to me, and I can't say who, because I told them it's confidential because they talked to me one-on-one. But what I can say is that I talked to some very important people in those movements who have a lot of power for a very long time. And my hope is that, I can better understand what they're actually trying to do. And so when I report on this stuff, it's based on data, not just rhetoric. But also, if I can get any of them to start thinking about like the language they're using and how dehumanizing they are, and try and challenge them to think about like, how is this the fruit of the spirit? How is this the way of Jesus at all? If I can plant one of those seeds and start watering it, maybe we can try and tone down the rhetoric from their spaces, because it's obviously, we know it's harming people. It's harming our queer neighbors. It's harming our marginalized friends. And so I feel a very, deep sense of obligation to do everything I can as pragmatically as possible to try and turn down their temperature. Cause it's crazy. It is wild what you hear from that stage.
Yeah. All right, Ryan, whose nameplate says Tripp.
Yeah, Tripp 2.
The other Tripp.
Yeah, Tripp 2.
I know. We met each other when we were going through puberty.
This fascinating, super fascinating. My first question about it is how genuine, or how how cynical did it seem for the people that, like, when you were talking to people, how much of it felt, if any, like people kind of were winking and knowing what they were doing was like playing into tropes for political power, and how much of it felt genuine by people like attendees or something, that they were like true believers in the script that was being given. And what you're just talking about really reminded me of, I'm always fascinated by the way in which people are playing on extremely powerful narratives that are doing harm in society, in our society, but they find ways to narrate themselves as those being persecuted. And
Yes.
that kind of like switch is like, I guess it's the same question applied to that, which is, that definitely goes on. I can imagine Rod Dreher, I don't know if he's there or not, but having a good old time.
There,
He'd be having a good old time thinking about imagining himself as a martyr. But because something happened on a TV that he didn't like. But like, how much of that rhetoric felt genuine and misplaced, or in how much of it felt, if at all, cynical? Cynical is the word I'm looking for.
Well, there's like two levels to that, right? So I think the people on the stage, when they talk on the stage, I think that they're very genuine. I think that they really, believe what they're saying. I talked to a pretty wide array of people who knew who I was. One of them used to have me blocked on Instagram. He saw me at the event, and we got along quite well for the duration of the weekend. And he's someone who I would put definitely in the right-wing space, but not really fully on board, or maybe pretty skeptical of being at an event like that. He's not really on the Trump train, so to speak. He thinks that that's kind of crazy. Then I met a couple who was older, who, when I told them I was a progressive Christian who was affirming, the older man started yelling at me pretty much like across the table, just asking me if I now think that pedophilia is okay.
Right.
And then the wife had to kind of calm him down. And then I swear to God, out of nowhere, just goes, "And God, we thank you for Tim. We thank you for his life." Just like lays her hand on me, just starts praying. That doesn't even ask. I'm like, well, I'm just gonna roll with the punches here, And then after that, the guy tells me that I'm not going to be a good father because I've forsaken my Judeo-Christian values, right? This older guy. And then after that, he loved me. He's like, "Tim, you're so patient with me. I appreciate that." I'm like, okay, like whatever. So you have people like that, and their job is to go around to like politicians and embed and help them choose biblical principles, quote unquote. So I think it's kind of a smorgasbord depending on who's there and why they're there. But I will say, to your point about like the victim mentality, the way I phrase it is, verbally, they pretend that they are victims of everything, but their actions make them the victimizers of everyone else, right? So like one example of this is that it's not trans people who are introducing legislation into our political body trying to make the church a nonprofit or trying to shut down churches or not allow clergy to have access to health care. That would be Christians introducing 413 pieces of legislation in 2023 to date, trying to minimize the rights of trans people in the name of insert right-wing talking point here. Right. And I want to be sensitive to to the audience, but I'm going to use some of their language. This is genital mutilation. You are grooming kids. Right. So that rhetoric is the basis that they use to fuel these anti-trans bills. So that's kind of how it works. Right. They'll be on the stage. We were victims of COVID and tyranny and the government. Woe is us. We're going to be put in prison at any moment. We have big tech is censoring our free speech. Their actions, though, it's Turning Point alone did $55 million in funding last year. $55 million. Okay. They dominate social media. That garbage documentary, What is a Woman, did 200 million views on Twitter because Elon Musk is essentially in bed with these people now. So it's the actions always speak louder than their words, and their actions are we're trying to dominate and just take over.
I'm really glad I didn't go to that event, Tim. I don't think I'm that nice.
I bear thy cross for thee, Tripp.
All right, Kristen, you got a question that's not so depressing because
yeah, we got to bounce back.
I know.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
I'm gonna do another. Oh, I'm gonna do a Theology Beer Camp one
right.
as well, and it is maybe I don't know, maybe everyone could answer this. Who is one person, alive or dead, you wish could be at Theology Beer Camp?
Oh, I loved this question.
Oh, alive or dead? Well, who's yours, Kristen? You read the question in advance.
See, people do this stuff where they ask a question because they just want people to listen to them, and I'm not. I wasn't like that, so I have no
you're
idea.
nice, but let's pretend you aren't, and you pick the question.
If there was one person, maybe it'd be, I'm just gonna get crazy and say, maybe Augustine or Augustine, whatever tradition you come from, because I'll be like, why and what and how and when, all the questions.
Yeah, you would definitely want him in the morning. You wouldn't want him at night. I feel like when he gets passionate, it can go the wrong way really bad.
Yeah.
But also, like his chapter
about stealing fruit.
I know, but his chapter on time in Confessions is one of those, like, I think that's what I'd pick to talk to him about. Like, if you could talk to Augustine about anything, or Augustine, either one.
I don't know which one.
I would pick time. Because he's like a Neoplatonist with the ontological priority of the future as like just on the cusp of saying it, but he's unsure if he can affirm the sovereignty of God without it. And I'm just, anyway, I'm sure that means a lot to all of you.
So much.
And
so much.
I know, Tim.
Wow.
Tim, so if anyone alive or dead,
Start playing the Hootie song, he'd go crazy.
Start playing the Hootie song. Why you punish me?
Wow, spot on.
Thank you, Bryn.
Whoa.
I also I've already told Tim just to keep talking twice.
My bad.
And Josh, who's in the chat, was like, "Is Tim actually drinking tonight?" And you were like, "Not really." And I was like, "I'll drink for both of us." So I am. So just keep talking, Tim. Who are you, alive or dead?
Sheesh.
Bringing him to beer camp.
I think C.S. Lewis could be an interesting person
hell
to
yeah.
have at beer camp.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be a good one.
Oh, then I'll pick J.R. Tolkien just because.
Yeah, I figured.
You know how last year at beer camp, we had a special pipe blend made for all the Tolkien heads, and I have been, now that I've been fine tuning it, so it's going to come back.
Oh,
Also, I believe we have at least one Tolkien scholar, publishes books on Tolkien, confirmed for Beer Camp. But since we aren't revealing details yet,
Ooh.
Wow.
I
Token
can't.
scholar. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, if you know, then you know. And so, I feel like C.S. Lewis and Tolkien, at the eschatological banquet, I'm going to be in the line that wants to just get loaded and smoke pipes with them. So I'm just saying, I understand, Tim. Are you worried that we'll just bring up the Silmarillion the whole time?
Is that a joke towards me?
Yeah, it's the deep cut Tolkien deep cut that makes you uncomfortable.
it's serious.
Yeah, dude. I'm already uncomfortable. Yeah. No, I mean, dude, never read the books. There it is, Tripp. Don't cancel me here, but
I have them. They're here in Springfield, so if you need to borrow them when you're at Beer Camp.
Yeah, you don't even know who Tom Bombadil is or know how Faramir got screwed.
Is that a new guest that's coming to Beer Camp?
Tom Bombadil.
Dude, if I honestly
is that a new scholar I never heard about?
If I could get Tom Bombadil to come to Beer Camp, he'd be epic. He's one of the characters that got cut out of the movies, Tim.
Maybe ChatGPT can recreate him for you, and you can just have a hologram.
Oh, that'd be insane.
I want you.
I'm here.
I want to endorse. I want to endorse your Tom Bombadil trolling. That is the best you've done. You've really leveled up.
Thank you.
So good.
All right, Bryn, alive or dead?
Who am I bringing to Beer
Yeah.
Camp? Okay, so it really took some thought because I've had a couple of friends that I really wanted to speak at Beer Camp not be able to.
Okay.
And so it was hard not to just knee-jerk.
Did they die recently?
All of my friends. No,
okay,
just
making sure that
this
wasn't a touchy subject.
So then I had to go. Then I had to go with deep cuts, and I was thinking about musical acts.
Oh,
I think I would bring Rich Mullins.
Oh, okay, that's quality. I mean, it would be difficult if that was a live option to decide between that and Tolkien, because I'm kind of worried his crotchety side of Catholicism would make him like him less if I was hanging out with him. But don't you think Rich Mullins, if he came back, would he would be gangster in a way that all of CCM would be uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think in his stead, Kevin Max could come and kind of fill the I was a CCM musician and now I'm just a creative wonder. But yeah, I think Rich Mullins would have a lot of interesting stuff to say, and he could sing for us. And he was doing it before. I mean, way before I knew what was even going on. He was telling all this. So.
All right, Jay in the chat says Rachel Holt Evans. Yes, I won't. Every event I did with Rachel was fun. The last one was hilarious. There's a edited version on the internet. But oh yeah, she was a lot of fun at live events. But you sang Rich Mullins and then talking musical acts. People might already figure out early that there might be more music than last year, and we're not leaking details, Bryn. So
Yeah, no.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. But maybe that was just like a meta tease.
Oh, if I could wink right now, I would do it, but I literally can't.
A meta tease. Ryan, what do you think?
Who would I want to come?
Yeah, well, other than you, I hope you actually come. Oh, God. I mean, I've only known you since I was a virgin when we met, and you still haven't even come to Beer Camp. Oh,
no. I don't know. Abraham Piper or something? I don't know.
Abraham
nice. Look, I unfollowed him and mute him on social media, and it still shows up. They're like, you should like this. And I'm like, you don't understand. His sweeping generalizations and inability for nuance pisses me off. I can't tell which one is more annoying, him or his dad. They're both ridiculous.
Jeez, bro.
Wow.
Yeah, you should be a philosopher that knows logic. They're both annoying. Like, I'm just telling you,
Oh.
if you would like me to parse his logic, it's just nuts. Like, he is annoying. He's as annoying as Richard Dawkins.
Whoa.
Better, though.
What?
Nothing.
Wow. Who are
Okay.
better?
I'm just saying. I know. I mean, like you're.
Or how about
Well,
Paul?
if he was there, it'd be
Saint
very
Paul or something.
entertaining.
Oh, Paul, that would be fun.
Yeah. Jesus,
Who's
as I
Paul?
loved, but
Just kidding.
Paul.
Daniel Kirk.
I was like, oh damn.
Oh, really?
Paul,
Does he have a last name?
This is a really hard question, though.
Yeah. It's a good
Okay,
one, though.
Yeah.
I got two answers. If they're alive, Pope Francis, because
Oh yeah.
like all of a sudden,
Yeah.
like because you know what Pope Francis does? He's always nice when he shows up, and he brings an authority that you can't
Yeah.
like fabricate.
Yeah.
So if it's a living person, I'm gonna go Pope Francis. But if it's dead, and do we get magical
Like it.
translators, Bryn? Do they automatically be able to speak English?
I think, yeah. What do you think, Kristen? This was your question. What do you think?
It was Kristen's question.
I actually.
Yeah. I just really love this question.
Oh, well, do they get to speak English, or do we have to translate?
You know, we could we'll get a translator in if they're coming. We'll get a translator.
Oh, but we have to sit for the translation. This is the thing: is like I don't want the translator to have to follow them when they're tipsy. All right, so if you have to use English because I'm worried, I want William James. If I'm going to pick an American that I want to get loaded with at beer camp, where I hear what he thinks off the record and stuff, William James, greatest American philosopher. Obviously, if his brother wants to come, that's all the better. And I got questions for William James. Also, notorious at parties, also on the DL, went to like weird trances and all sorts of weird stuff that
Whoa.
Okay.
so like one of the greatest American philosophers. I'd love for the guy that authored Varieties of Religious Experience to come to Theology Beer Camp, and he's processed light.
Yes.
So
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but if I could pick a fictional
Wow.
character, it would be Sam from Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Samwise Gamgee.
Wow.
That'd be
I
great.
love
that.
Sam.
That'd be great.
All right, so
So
whose
glad you're
question
with
is it
me,
now?
Sam.
I think it's mine.
All right.
Yeah. Well,
You were
and
on big
sadly,
screen, you
I've
know.
got Bren, you're on big screen. I sadly have to run. I've got Canada stuff to do. But I'm
you're
almost
going to a
done with the Canada
brewery
stuff.
because you have not.
Yeah, I'm like.
It's only 7
I gotta go
o'clock
do
for
the
you. The
brewery
sun is
stuff.
out.
Yeah.
Do you have any of
big
that
sun
bad smoke in
energy.
Canada right now? Because it's coming down to New Jersey.
We have
it's
a
horrible
little.
here.
I heard that. I heard from my Pennsylvania family. That's like a first. But yeah.
It's like being in a
we got
dense
some out
fog.
here.
It's really bad. Yeah.
Crazy.
Oh, we had that a
Nuts.
few years ago in Seattle.
Yeah.
You're saying that you haven't
All
heard
right,
from
well-
your family in a long time, and they were just like, "Hi, Kristen. Long time no talk. There's smoke here."
their letter finally arrived by way of pack mule, and it was like, oh, there's
Okay.
some smoke. So yeah, I was like,
The pack
shoot.
mule.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
Anyway,
Hope you gave it a
Yeah.
carrot.
well, blessings. I got it out of my out of my
Hey,
fridge.
stay prayed up.
All right. More soon.
Bye,
Stay
Kristen.
zesty.
Bye, Chris.
Ooh, we'll try. All right, Brent, what's the next question?
This is a cool question because it's a question I sometimes have also had, especially coming from evangelical spaces.
Oh.
Why is there not a bigger push to teach lay people the basics of theology? Growing up, every pastor I had actively avoided conversations about the Trinity or different ideas about atonement. We got a standard line and moved on. I feel this harms the church overall because it forces people not to think through their own religion.
Oh, yeah.
That is teaching you theology and evangelicalism. Like they think their job is done.
Fair enough.
They gave you PSA. They
Yeah.
gave you eternal conscious torment. They gave you an inerrant Bible, and that is the Christian tradition for all people for all time.
Avi.
Oh,
I agree. Because they don't know. That's the answer. You have to be struggling in that water to be able to do it. And so they don't. I agree with that completely. They're giving you the answer they got.
They're giving the answer they got.
I mean, the whole system is designed for that. The evangelical multi-million-dollar industry is designed to keep a very specific theology while making some flexibility on some things that still keep you in fundamentalist theology. So, like, okay, we're not going to say that speaking in tongues is definitely heresy. We'll make room for that. But inerrancy of the Bible, well, no, now you're definitely a heretic, you know? So it's like they have concocted the perfect system that keeps a very wide. It's simultaneously wide, yet still incredibly narrow at the same exact time. It's amazing.
So, in my experience, and this is more like on the secondhand variety of like listening to people, especially clergy who know better and then are in congregations that expect this. I think a lot of evangelical congregations want their minister to pronounce the truth with a fist rather than an open hand.
Yeah.
And so if the congregation who pays for your family's health insurance wants fist pumping with authority and clarity and finality and certainty, and then you're like, but actually, I'm friends with a rabbi, and there's the oral Torah, and there's this whole history of interpretation, and there blah 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 blah, blah hermeneutical excess, and like you go through all this kind of thing, they get uncomfortable. Like if your faith is connected to certainty and authority,
yeah,
then like letting people know that the atonement theory and if penal substitutionary atonement and inerrancy and infallibility weren't invented until after Darwin, that's really annoying.
Right. But
like
most
it
people
doesn't
don't know
work.
that, right? Or most evangelicals just think that's how it's always been. Period.
Yeah, that's why I think just as someone that talks to a lot of those ministers, a lot of them may know better. And this is what their congregation wants. Like the same thing kind of happens right around kind of political convictions, where if the congregation has an identity in one place, then you have to like lean into it, or they're going to keep questioning you and pushing you. And so in those situations, whether it's like theological positions on the left or right or political ones, the more important one to me, if you're going to talk about ultimate reality, it's like no closed fist, open hands. Because if it's worth giving yourself to, if it's worth worshiping, if it's worth seeking, then you can't claim it. And the part of the problem is the habits of discipleship after modernity and a lot of its anxiety around all sorts of new knowledge, a tactile connection to pluralism and these kinds of things is closing in. Let me see. Here's our version. But once you get here like this, you're unable to really respond deeply, I think, to the call of God, which involves going like, I'm here, I'm committed, but I know not what. Like, where are you going? Think of like the disciples when they met Jesus. Come and follow me. Like if you had asked them like, where are you going? They wouldn't have said Jerusalem for his execution. Yeah. They literally are 13, 14 chapters in, depending on the gospel, and Matthew, Mark, and Luke, before he says, I'm going to Jerusalem. Then they get pissed and are like, why are you going to go there? You're going to get killed. And he's like, are you that dumb? Right? Like, so the requirement of closure and certainty cuts you off from a vibrant living relationship with ultimate mystery. Christians say there is ultimate mystery and its face is expressed in the Christ. That doesn't close the ultimate mystery. It just says it's centered here. But if Christ is your center, there's no boundary. Not in like a flimsy, non-definitional, non-commitment, like topsy-turvy, whatever. It's literally centered in the sense of, what does it look like for God to show up at any moment, any context, any community? Looks different. And so you go into it like this. But what are you opening yourself up to is the question, not what are you bringing in. What are you
Right.
opening yourself up to? The call and lure and possibility of grace, beauty, truth, goodness, justice. Not what are you bringing in? The answer. Like if you just take the question of justice, I think in political polarizations, the ugly versions in our current moment don't go in open to justice. They go in seizing their interpretation of the law and then impose it on the other. And what that does is tell the other, hold in your fist as tightly and angrily and confidently as me, my truth about justice, or take a fist. That doesn't mean we don't take sides. That doesn't mean we don't have deep commitments. It doesn't mean we don't have solidarity with the underside. It's just how you show up. If the ultimate reality shows up by having solidarity with the forsaken, abandoned, rejected, and cross dead one, then unless you're in that position, the crucified people of the present, then you show up open-handed, ready to learn and be provoked towards justice you did not have in your imagination before. And I think the problem of most American political conversation is they're overdetermined by upper middle class expressions of the left and the right. And then they become performative. And then we close fists. And then the ones you see are the ones that you get on TV funded by the military industrial complex and big pharma. But anyway, if you get what I'm saying, like the open and closed thing really cuts you off from a lot.
No, I mean, that sounds beautiful, right? But that isn't like.
No, let's just stop
not,
with that. Sounds beautiful, Tim. Let's
let's
pause there for a minute.
You
Hold
know,
on.
that-
Say
that
it.
whole-
Say it one more time, Tim.
That sounds beautiful. As we all know, the evangelical framework that does have the most power, I think, religiously in America, just has a whole different way of thinking about that, which essentially is we have an understanding of God's objective truth revealed to us through the inerrant scriptures. And we're not interpreting the Bible, we're just reading it. And that is the blueprint for life. And everyone else essentially has to submit to that, or else they're not really going to be blessed, or they really can't live a full life, or they're not really moral, or whatever it is. And so it's hard to change your mind from thinking about things that way to what you just said. And I think one of the reasons is, and I'm really just spitballing here, is that one at least gives you the illusion of certainty, right? The illusion of, no, I'm standing on something that is objective and that is right and is clear. And the other requires wisdom, which, is we have wisdom literature for a reason, right? But like one requires wisdom and one requires complexity and understanding other perspectives that are foreign to yours and wrestling through that. And frankly, it takes a lot more brain power. It just takes a lot more brain power to sit with these things and think about them. And I, to your point about pastors, I've had pastors that I know who are really conservative, who might have a view that for them might seem so progressive, like, hey, maybe gay people should be allowed to get married in America. Like, wow, I know I'm really progressive here. But they'll be like, well, I can't say it to my congregation because they'll think I'm just some, liberal leftist person. And that's because most white evangelicals are discipled by Tucker Carlson, not by like solid theologians, right? So when you're getting your worldview is being formed by people like Tucker or Charlie Kirk, I tell a lot of pastors, like, you need to understand that you're essentially playing Minesweeper with their brain. And if you hit the wrong button, the bomb goes off and they think you're a woke, radical leftist Marxist trying to destroy the country. So like that's what makes this so difficult to navigate, because, if I told someone, whoever, hey, as a Christian, I really think it's important that we fight for affordable healthcare in the country and that we really do our best to like look at like the impact of global warming and just how it's, hurting the planet. It doesn't matter that I can make those cases from a solid Christian tradition, like very solid, maybe the dominant perspective. And also even from a fundamentalist biblical view, like I can pull some verses as a literalist and say, look, here's the proof. But it doesn't matter because those two statements are so deeply embedded as red alerts, liberal, therefore cannot listen to that person. And I think that's the challenge for a lot of people like myself who are trying when we can, to have those conversations with folks who are still in that space of like, man, there are just better ways forward, but you have to get rid of this like trigger warning in your brain. It's difficult.
Well, and that's something I noticed at Beer Camp too, was like the amount of clergy that were present. There were certain themes that were discussed that you could tell, like if you kind of had identified who those people were through conversations earlier, you could really tell that when certain themes were discussed, it was the first time that they were feeling like freed up to think those things and think through those ideas in a way that was like, oh, this, using like a certain kind of being sensitive to my congregation and where they're coming from. I'm finding that there's a path forward that I can maybe present this information, and it can be safe for me to do so. Because of all these other clergy and all these theologians and all this study being done about these things. And it was this kind of, by the end, especially when Kevin and Diana kind of gave that closing remark, like by the end of it, they were freed up and they came in with this heavy, like, are there other clergy and pastors that believe the way I do, or thinking through these tough things, or having these hard conversations? And by the end, they were forming relationships, and they were like connecting and being freed up to talk about those things. And so that was something, like, being a lay person, I was just like, oh, this is who Beer Camp is for.
100%.
That relationship part, I think, is important, and all four of us have partners in life, and I think that open-handed, closed fist thing works there, which, right, like if you cling to closed-fistedly the version of the person you're attempting to love with the divine love, and it's that version you had in your head at any point in your relationship, and then you go up to them years later and you're like, no, I'm doing this. They're going to look at you like, oh, that's great. I'm not there now. Right? Like any genuine loving thing involves being open to the actual mystery of their existence. Yeah. The dignity that the other person you love gets is the dignity of their mystery. That doesn't mean you don't love them. It doesn't mean they don't love you. Right? Like the actual gift of love in relationship is permission to remain a mystery. You get taken off hand. And then what you learn is, like, the more you know them, the more mysterious they get, because there's this deeper and deeper levels, and those deeper levels are the intimacy you look for. Like, you really hope that you have inside jokes, facial expressions, things you do and don't do years in that you didn't have at the beginning. Not because you didn't love each other at the beginning, just that you went through that relationship open-handed. And I think part of the anxiety that comes with people when we realize that the initial version of God we were handed isn't the final one, is that we have to open our hand for the first time. That's when a lot of people break up, or that's when a lot of people get divorced or in their engagement, is because you don't give the other the dignity of deep mystery. But if it's true with a human, be it your partner or your kid, or your best friend or anyone else, but like, you know it closely with the ones that you're most invested in, that you don't know them, and to love them means you have to remain open. Why the hell do we think we're going to understand God any more clearly, finally, and certainly? Like, I don't even know myself that well, let alone think Alicia does or my children do. And yet I know she knows me more than any other person, loves me better than any other person today than she did 20 years ago when we were married. Like, that's just like how it works. But that open-handed turn is, in one sense, it is the death of being able to possess what you love. Mm-hmm. But in the other side, it's actually getting to meet the mystery of life. Mm-hmm. And if you want to use the word love, it has to be living. And so one of the things I hope that happens at Beer Camp, and like those of you, listening now or later will discover, like, we're going to build the main sessions around I did a survey of like almost 4,000 people that have deconstructed since 2016. their biggest questions that triggered the story. And so what we're going to do is get different theologians and such to that was their deconstructing question to tell their story, and then like how by their engagement with the tradition they've started to reconstruct. And honestly, he's a philosopher that has a real definition to deconstruction based on the actual French phenomenological tradition. I don't like that word. Reconstruction also sounds like you're building to certainty, so I don't like. But you know what I mean.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is Tripp's like professional aside.
Maybe
but
it's kind of like a demo and like a reframing with like some new materials, to kind of.
It's like when I, as a minister, when I talk to people that said, I want to renew my vows, and will you do it? The questions were not like, well, did you mean it the first time, or is this the last time you're going to say it? The question is, are you engaged in a deeper way than you were the first time you said it? Because it's always worth celebrating a deeper commitment to reality. And that deeper reality of who you are now, a deeper reality of the other you are. If you have children at this point, a deeper reality to them. And that you're choosing in that deeper awareness life together. And I think for people that were given one version of the faith, going like, ugh, it could have been Trump, it could be the problem of evil, probably not because of the things I said, or whatever the reasons are, but you sit there and then like, if your response is, I want to say yes to the experience of God that's somehow connected to Jesus without saying yes to ugly. Like, what do I do? What am I showing up to the next moment when those experiences and the handing of the tradition were always with people that shared something I can't share anymore?
Right.
And I just want you to know how familiar those sound as as clergy who've talked to people 10 or 15 years into their marriage and realize that even if you aren't changing people, you're on your second or third marriage. You're saying yes to a very different relationship than you said before.
Yeah.
And what are they asking you for when you show up on the beach? Well, I was clergy in Los Angeles, so, I'm projecting. But the ones I did were on a beach. When you're showing up there and bringing as a clergy the blessing of God, what you're saying is like, no. The dignity of your story and its contextual wrestlings and struggles are the things we celebrate when you say the same words again. And so as a Christian, I think we can say what happens when you get to a place, and this is the kind of theologians we're hoping to get there. Like a lot of us will say like, oh, is your relationship with God mediated by Jesus? Yeah. Because Jesus Lord. Yeah. Like you have all these language you could use, but it means something different because of the journey you've been on.
Right.
Be it intellectual, experience, institutional. And what we hope happens at Beer Camp, and what like having Bryn, Kristen, Tim annoying me throughout the process is, it's not just the intellectual journey, it's the experiential. Like, can we have a thing where like everyone gets to open the hands of mystery, be it intellectual, experience, struggle, pain, trauma, all these kinds of things? Can we do that and then go, can we say yes to the love we've experienced in Christ again? Can we say yes to the venture of figuring out something different because something seized us back then and there are parts we leave behind? What is that saying yes to the mystery of ultimate reality that was expressed in a homeless first century Jew executed by the state because he refused to live his life without the underside? I'm about to lapse into preaching, but
I don't think you're about to. I think you did, but it's cool. It was good. It was good.
Tim,
sometimes you gotta preach, bro. You gotta just say it.
Yeah.
Don't knock. I'm not knocking. I'm just saying you've been preaching. It's good.
Wow, you should just hear the other 20 minutes if I kept going. It's just anyway. Theologybeer.camp. You can sign up. You can get the tickets. Let's just do one more question because
cool.
Here, pass me that can. I want to show them.
Let's do one more. I'm down for that.
All right. So, I showed y'all saw the process party can. Well, here's another by the artist.
That's sick.
This is a
Oh, Utini, that's Ewok, right?
yeah, it's the barrel aged Belgian quad. This artist, I can't remember his name. If you're in the chat, Josh, you can let us know. Is currently making a graphic of what would happen if the bar in Mos Eisley at the Cantina was turned into a podcast studio. What if the bartenders are podcasters? He's making a graphic. We know he's got Star Wars. He's got process party skills. So we're hoping to have quality camp shirts. Oh, here we go.
Oh, yeah.
He does. There we go. Josh, Phil Pilgrim is the artist. Phil Pilgrim. Anyway, I say this Belgian quad, Tim, I know he is 14%. It's a Belgian quad put in barrels. I'm enjoying it. Anyway, so Bryn,
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's do a. So my husband, when we go out to eat at restaurants, he presents his fist and says, "Pick a hand."
Nice.
So I'm gonna have you guys kind of pick a hand. Do we want to go super serious? Do we want to go beer camp tied in with Star Wars, or do we want to go straight Star Wars to finish it out?
When you say super
There's
serious,
three
you
of
mean
you.
like what is evil serious, or like, hey, what's your thought on like Reconstruction serious?
We're teetering on what is evil serious. I'd say.
Middle of the road, maybe. What do you think?
Tripp would be Greedo. Tim would be Biff. All right. Well, okay. Let's do Star Wars. Otherwise, that's the easiest.
Straight Star Wars or Star Wars tied with beer camp?
What?
This is about beer camp. Let's do Star Wars tied with beer camp.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Star Wars tied with beer camp. Okay, here we go. Question 39 on this list says, are any of the beer camp speakers or podcasters force sensitive?
Oh. All right. Well, that is like a sneaky question to try to get things out of us about who's coming. All right. Well, look, Tim is force sensitive because he's a drummer. Yeah,
okay.
You're a drummer. Yeah. Drummers are force
sensitive.
sensitive.
Question number 50 is Tim actually going to play the drums at beer?
No.
Will Tim play the drums? No, you don't know that yet. I'm going to bring a djembe. And after you have your second sour,
we've got a cage set up. We've got a whole.
Dude, I'm gonna trigger back to my acoustic worship nights on my djembe.
Triggered back.
If you start singing Bethel, we'll have a major problem on our hands. I'll tell you that right now.
Second naivete. Like yeah. How many sour beers does it take to get some Lord to lift your name on high up in this piece?
We just switched karaoke to like CC, like 90 CCM.
Yeah, people used to do like beer and hymns, but what about beer and Hillsong? I don't even know which songs they sing. I'm sorry, but
I know sign language for some.
Okay, but
jeez.
Okay, but for sensitive speakers, all right. Okay. One of the people that came last year, I know is coming again. Adam Clark. He's one of my best friends.
He's definitely
epic theologian.
Good dude.
Like if you are a Black liberation theologian with a side piece of your process vibe and a deep contemplative that teaches like contemplative practices to undergrads on a regular basis, you are force sensitive.
I agree.
Also, he has some hot takes on Star Wars, some of which are true. Like maybe we text each other after we watch nerd movies and or Laker playoff games. So I'm just saying, like he's force sensitive. Tim only if the drums count, like because But
I think Tripp is force sensitive. Like 3 beers in, he becomes force sensitive.
I agree.
So like he doesn't start there, but like by like halfway through, he's in.
Yeah, I would say he came to the Tolkien session with a pitcher, like locked and loaded.
All right.
And that the Tolkien session was really like he was just really locked in.
I was locked in.
We got some good stuff.
Tim, you weren't there. The Tolkien podcast breakout. I came in after I was thoroughly pre-gamed. and Evan Garcia said, "I'll be Schwartz sensitive. The deep cut
Oh my gosh.
on that is quality." Evan, I'm gonna buy all your beer camp. Since
So
I buy
good.
everyone's
Evan's a-
beer.
And he wants Pete Holmes to come.
Evan is
so
a
I'm on it.
TNE a homie. He's great. Love Evan.
Okay,
Oh,
but
can't wait to meet him.
so we came into the Tolkien thing, and I was running late, so I just filled up a pitcher of beer. And by the end of it, someone asked about friendship and Tolkien, and I think I talked for about 20 minutes uninterrupted while drinking the pitcher and cried. I listened back to it. It was quality. Like if you were a youth minister, you'd recognize this ability where you're like, I got a vamp. And then all of a sudden you become emotionally attached to what you're saying. And then by the end, you're like, this is the greatest thing I've ever said.
Totally.
That's what I'm saying. You clicked into the force at that point.
Okay, but all right. Here's my attempt to answer the question because I'm not going to reveal other things.
Well, hold on. One person has announced already that they're coming. Pete has said he's coming like publicly.
Okay.
He said it publicly. So
but he's not force sensitive.
Definitely not. The guy's German. Definitely not force sensitive. No way, Jose. Is that dude force sensitive? Hard stop.
But he wants to be. That's what it means. It's like not everyone that has been tenured at Westminster Theological Seminary even wants to be force sensitive.
That's true.
Calvinists tend not to want to be force sensitive. But you know, they could be.
But now he's not there, so
yeah, he's not there anymore. So he could be we're gonna work on him. Okay. Oh, also, I'd say force question should ask it to Grace G. Sun Kim because actually, like the strongest correlation to the force in Star Wars for like religion scholars is the Tao. It is a strong Venn diagram, but here the force sensitive question I think is important. Tim, you tell me how shitty this answer is.
Okay.
I'm gonna try to riff on this.
Oh boy.
Because you're gonna have to you're gonna give the conclusion of this gathering. Because because this is our last question.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would ask the next one, and then we'll see what happens.
I do need to tell Evan, we've locked onto a kombucha sponsor.
Oh yeah.
So there will be NA options available, Evan. Please come.
Yeah. You don't want to go to Furnace Fest. You can listen to that.
I was going to go to that, but
What, Emory? What?
Whoa. Let's not start talking about heart. I just did Tripp. I just talked to Leah Payne. Do you know who she is?
Yes. I
was just on her podcast talking about the hardcore CCM experience as being a drummer in that world for a long time, and it was so much fun.
Tim and I first bonded over the Cornerstone.
Okay,
I played. I've gone to Cornerstone plenty of times.
Oh, okay, Tripp, whatever, bro. Well, I played Cornerstone, so there's that. All right. What? I paid money to Cornerstone to go on a stage to play in front of 5 people.
No,
you did.
That's how it works. When you're a shitty no-name band, you have to pay to get a spot underneath one of the tents while you're competing with like other people. So it was like being in Mordor because it was when like metal
it's not like being in Mordor. There's it's hard to find drinking water there.
Let me explain why it was like Mordor. I'll tell you why. Because this was when like the heavy metal shit was like really in, so every band was like, but they're all at the same time. So imagine like 15, 20 tents.
What are they doing, Tim?
Yeah, exactly. They're doing that. And so I remember camping. I have my tent set up. It's hot as balls outside. It's like 95 degrees, 100% humidity. And I'm like, okay, I can't stay cool. And I just hear growls all day. I'm in Mordor. I've reached hell on earth.
But was that your actual reference?
What?
Yeah,
like at that time, were you like, I'm in Mordor?
That's the first thing I thought of. I'm like, this is.
Okay,
I'm
all right. I appreciate that.
I'm in Mordor. Yeah.
We snuck our way into youth group camping. We lied and said our group of friends was a youth group. And that our friend's mom was our youth pastor. But it ended up being a big mistake because youth group camping was very close to main stage. And it was the year that they had Brian Head Welch of Korn.
Nice.
He headlined main stage. And so he did sound check at 7 a.m. And youth group camping 200 feet from main stage, and I woke up to like corn.
Wow.
So I've been to Mordor as well.
Yes. Thank you. And we survived.
So
Yeah, we did.
I got up at whatever the time, when they do the big run at Cornerstone. This is a giant music festival, by the way, for people without evangelical baggage. And
Right.
it's the edgy one. So
Yes.
when how there's like a time where now you can run with your tarps down to the main stage.
Okay. Yeah.
I went to a lot of those festivals a bunch of times, but the year it was the first time Stryper reunited. Me and my brother and the guitar player in our band, Matt, and my cousin, Ariel, we were at the line at like 5 a.m. or whatever the hell it was. And we sprinted down, and there's like the stage is flat except for this little output in the front. And we were in the very front right divot. And that day was 3 out of the 4 bands at the main stage that night were epic. First up, Larry Norman with a full band. Larry Norman, father of Christian rock music. Epic. I knew every word to every song. It was legendary. I love Larry Norman. Then Earthsuit.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a better version that is better than Mute Math because
no, Tripp.
I don't agree with that,
Okay,
but also we
okay.
saw them.
That's fine.
you can talk, Ryan. You have a microphone.
Yeah, Ryan, go ahead. Finish your sentence,
No.
man.
We saw them in some place in the middle of North Carolina rural.
No.
You got on stage by the end of the concert.
I know. I was friends with everyone, and Adam liked me the best, the one they got rid of for Mute Math. That's why I like.
Mute Math more.
No, that's why I like Earthsuit more.
Hey, Mute Math. Their initial debut, first their EP was great, and then their first album was awesome.
Darren,
and then after that, Darren King. Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah.
And their show is really good. Like they just had a good show.
Earthsuit was great in concert too.
Okay.
Darren, when he got finished high school, because he played on the Earthsuit stuff or whatever, all of a sudden he showed up and they had a band, but he was playing djembe with a mic taped onto the front of it, running around.
Love it.
And he was anyway, so it's Larry Norman, Earthsuit, and then freaking Third Day comes out before Stryper. And first 2 Third Day albums, great. The first one's excellent. It's Southern rock. And
I'm here for all of it.
And he doesn't have, that's before they found out that they should write bad theology songs. They were just like, God loves everyone, pray, made everything, and it's great. We should have gratitude. And you're like, great, this is excellent.
Come on, say it, Pastor.
And they did it with a Marshall stack and a Les Paul, and it sounded like a mediocre Leonard Skinner cover band with a cool voice singing. And then they were like,
Creed singing.
And then they became the Nickelback of Christian
and then they
rock.
were like, it's 2 songs in, and then what's Mac Powell? Isn't that his name?
Yeah, Mac Powell.
He's like, you may have thought you came to a rock show. You've come to a worship service.
Nice.
And I'm just like, no.
Classic bait and switch.
I paid for a rocks.
And so I just sit down, and my area just sits down, and we sit on the ground in the very front until they get done singing worship songs. Now, this isn't because I haven't sang worship songs. I sing them. Oh, I've been reprimanded for screaming. I'm not going to scream. But I was like, I didn't go to Cornerstone to sing Lord of all creation, maker of heaven and earth.
Had a tent for that.
Yeah, there's a whole worship tent. This is the main stage. You're between Earthsuit and Stryper. So I sit down for a while, which made me rejuvenate so that I could, too, take off my outer layer to reveal that I, too, was wearing spandex during the Stryper show and give my all to the Bible-thumping bumblebees. Yellow and Black Attack, soldiers under command, to hell with the devil.
Hell with the devil.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what happened the last time I was in Springfield where Theology Beer Camp's going to be, Bryn?
What's that?
It was, what was the name of that conference? Subverting the Norm? And my buddy
Okay.
Johnny, he was the guitar player for Cold War Kids, the band. And so we were doing the podcast after the like main stuff one night, and it was like Jack Caputo and Pete Rollins, and I'm talking to them and stuff. And I'm like, now we're gonna do a song between it. Johnny plays this alt country version of "To Hell with the Devil," which I proceed to sing. And the half of the room that knew Striper was like, this is hilarious because it's an alt country version of "To Hell with the Devil." The other half is like, what is happening? And Jack Caputo or John D. Caputo comes up after it and he goes, I don't know what just happened. But I wish I was informed because the people next to me were laughing incessantly and I felt bad for you. And I was like, oh no, there's this 80s band.
It's a whole thing. You just had to be there.
Yeah, you had to be there.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, good times. Good story.
I know that was what happened last time I was in Springfield.
Well, here's to making new memories.
I know.
All right?
Tim and I are going to come hang out in Springfield this summer.
Yes,
I'm here
we
for
are.
We're going to go to Bass Pro,
We gotta
fellas.
plan that soon, Tripp, because I mean my weekends
Yeah.
are shot. I'm geeking
No,
every
we're doing the
weekend,
middle of
so.
the week, and there's some weeks that I've already mapped with Bryn and my schedule that I'm supposed to send you, and I'm just realizing that I'm supposed to send it to you.
Good. Well, send it over ASAP so I can schedule it.
But not while we're on live stream.
Well, not
so,
now. Just text me later on or something.
Yeah, because
not tonight though. I'm going to bed. After, it's 11:15 in my time, and my kids get up at 5:30 in the morning, so I'm going right to bed.
5:30
or 6. Or,
All right. So anyway, everyone go to theologybeer.camp. You'll get an email next week. Get your tickets.
Woo.
Get them early.
Woo.
Get them often.
There we go.
We'll have some fun. And
when are you going to announce the lineup? Like, how does this work, Tripp?
We're gonna start.
Maybe I should ask
leaking it.
Bren, since Bren seems.
No, we're gonna leak it. We're like, here's a trick.
Just
it's gonna slowly creep.
One here.
You know how Yoda kind of dies and he just kind of fades into the. That's how
they're
we're
gonna slowly get revealed like Force Ghosts.
Tripp, you got my list though, right? I sent you everything from people that I thought might be good fits.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Right. Yeah. Your list made me if we get some of the people on your list, I'm just gonna.
I try to pick some real winners, like some real, like
You know what else is a winner?
What?
You. Tim,
oh,
you're a winner.
Thanks. Tripp, I love when you are force sensitive. It makes me so happy.
Wow.
And also with you.
Yes, and also with you, Tripp.
All righty. Well, this was fun.
This is good.
We'll hang out with y'all again later. And I'm just glad for the other 70 questions we didn't get to.
It took us 2 hours to get through 4 of them.
No, well, let's do it again. And Daniel wants to know where to book a hotel room. Brandon, just tell them the church info so that he can book a hotel.
So we're going to be at the venues. The address of that church is 2616 East Battlefield in Springfield, Missouri.
Right here.
And so we're kind of right on the southeast side of town. A boutique hotel I really like around there is called The Vibe.
Yeah.
It's really fun, but we're kind of surrounded by hotels.
But also,
2616 East Battlefield at the venue.
Like in the next week or so, all of that will be on the website once it shifts over after you get to buy your pre-sale tickets. So, all right, with that.
Wait.
Peace out.
Wait, hold on.
Oh,
wait.
Fun fact.
The biggest evangelical children's organization's headquarters is in Missouri.
Yeah, they're going to come.
I used to work for them.
Oh, I'm good.
I was one of their Christian.
And we want people to
I was one of their Christian Youth in Action. I'll have you know.
Obviously, you're full of action.
I prayed for the Supreme Court to let them teach their 5-day clubs in public schools like a good Christian at age 12. So,
amen.
There you go.
Hats off.
On that note, friends, night.